Welcome to Fundraising Stories with Female Founders. I'm Julia Elliott-Brown, the founder and CEO of Enter the Arena. I'm a serial entrepreneur and an expert in raising investment and business growth. Our mission at Enter the Arena is to empower female founders to fly through pre-raise and investment and onto the exponential growth of their business with investment expertise and business coaching. Here we share the stories of inspirational female founders who've raised investment to inspire you to do the same. You'll hear their honest accounts of what it was really like to secure funding, the highs, the lows, and the challenges they experienced on the journey. And along the way, we'll discuss top tips for how you can be successful too. Today I'm speaking with Kike Oniwinde, who in 2020 raised £900,000 through crowdfunding for her business BYP Network. Now, BYP Network is a platform that connects Black professionals to each other and to corporations, empowering them through thought leadership and upskilling events, role model visibility, and job opportunities. Launched in 2016, the community now has tens of thousands of members across the world and over 600 corporate clients, including Facebook, Viacom, and Goldman Sachs. Now, Kike is a really impressive woman, as you're going to find out shortly. She's a Forbes 30 under 30, World Economic Forum shaper, and has won 3 national pitch competitions for her business. So without further ado, let's meet Kike and discover her fundraising story and what she learned along the way. So welcome, Kike. It's great to have you here.
Hi, Julia. It's great to be here.
And it's taken us a little while to organise this interview, hasn't it, I think?
Maybe a year.
Quite a stressful time for you in 2020.
Yes, that so much happened. I was on the go throughout the whole year, essentially. And I feel like it caught up to me at the end of the year. And I just wanted to be, I don't want to say at peace, but just kind of just not do too much anymore. Just kind of focused internally more on the company than kind of external and internal at the same time. So yeah, that's why it's taken a while. I feel like mentally I just didn't want to do another podcast, another talk, another panel.
Yeah, it can be a bit much, can't it, sometimes? I mean, fundraising can be so stressful. You did it during a pandemic. I'm not surprised that everybody wants to talk to you. So I think I just wanted to say, like, well done for taking that little step back and cancelling our interview. I respected you for doing that. But let's go back a little bit then. So and we'll talk about the fundraising shortly. But let's go back to what you were doing before you set up BYP. Tell us a bit about your story up until that point.
Yeah, sure. So before I started BYP Network, my identity was more centered on being an athlete. And just someone who's very academic as well. So I grew up in East London, single parent household, went to a local state school, didn't have the highest GCSE pass rates, but I managed to get like mainly all A stars. And at the same time, I was doing Javelin for Great Britain. So that was a lot of training, like 5 to 6 days a week of training. But then obviously you can imagine studying at the same time, still trying to maintain a social life and working a part-time job at John Lewis. So I realize I've always been someone who does a lot, and I do a lot to a good degree. And so that was always my identity, just a very kind of well-versed person, good at sports, good at studying. I went off to do my undergrad at University of Nottingham, so I did economics there, and again still doing my sport. And I managed to get a scholarship to the University of Florida to do Javelin, but also to get my master's out there. Had an incredible time out there, met so many amazing people. And my Javelin wasn't going as well as I wanted it to go, actually. So I'd say I battled a bit of imposter syndrome or something when I was out there. But what it allowed me to do is kind of see beyond my sport and really kind of get to know people who were just in the campus and, what they're up to, and start thinking about careers. And I met so many, talented people, but what really struck me were some of the Black students and professionals I met out there. I kind of felt like, oh, wow, I never knew you existed, or would never know you existed by the media, because the narrative of Black Americans is like just sports or music, but actually there's so many different opportunities. It's when I first even heard of Silicon Valley when I was out there, and I met this guy out there who had, I think he said a blank check of, or blank pay slip, whatever he wants in a job in Silicon Valley. And I remember just thinking, what? So I just had this great experience. And when I came back to the UK, as well, you know, during that period, I had some work experience. So I worked in investment banking, so front office, sales and trading. And I remember always being kind of one of only a few, or if not the only Black person in the room. The other Black people would be like security guards or cleaners. And I remember always thinking that's a bit strange. You're like, where is everyone? You know, I'm from East London. I see Black people all the time, but why are we not here? So I got quite a baptism of fire in the world of work, of just realizing that, you know, there's two worlds essentially. So when I came back to the UK after Florida, you know, Black Lives Matter was happening at that time. I just started working in like a fintech startup company. And I just felt kind of really frustrated about the current climate, you know, like what's going on here, you know, why are we being killed? Why are there not enough Black people in, you know, big corporations and startups as well? You know, just all these kind of thoughts went into my head. And I just felt like, okay, well, maybe a solution is if we find each other, you know, if we Black professionals find each other, we come together, we network, we help each other get new jobs, we give back and mentor the next generation, we start new businesses. Just, you know, the idea of just like, I just want to meet other people who are on this journey. And that's kind of how it all came to be. And just got started in 2016 with some events, did an event every kind of 6 weeks. And the whole point of the event was to kind of leave your titles at the door. It doesn't matter who you are, you could be an MD or you can literally be entry level, but we're all friends and we're all just here to kind of get to know each other and be social. And yeah, before I know it, like BYP really just took off. People started to know about the event, started to know about BYP. And yeah, it just grew from there.
That's so inspiring. I mean, obviously you know, success is in you. You're a high achiever. There's no doubt. It's very interesting actually, because I often get asked, you know, why do you focus just on working with female founders? And it's the motivation, I think, is quite similar to you wanting to bring Black founders together, and Black community together, is that there's so much power, isn't there, when you realize you're not alone, and when you support each other and you can lift each other up. The difference you can make is phenomenal.
Yeah.
When you do that. So what an amazing idea. So you started off with events, and did you have a vision as to where you thought it might go, or did you just kind of start with something and it kind of snowballed from there?
Yeah, I had a vision. I always kind of knew I wanted it to be a tech platform or an app or just something that can help connect us globally more easily. I was quite inspired at the time with a lot of the you know, tech stories, whether it was Bumble or Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, just, you know, all those kind of founders, and just quite inspired by their story and just how technology was, you know, connecting people and changing lives. And so I always knew that, but obviously I had no clue how to actually do that. So I just thought, just start where I am, and where I was in my bedroom on my laptop. And I remember I just kind of made a flyer quickly, just put it on Eventbrite, made some social handles, started tweeting about it. And within, I think the first event sold out in like 3 days or something. And so it just straight away, it was like, actually just before that, I did a survey. So I did a survey and got about 100 responses. I remember, I think about 8% were like, yeah, we need this service. And then off the back of that, I launched the event a few months later and sold out a few 100 spaces within a few days. And I think from there is when I realized, okay, I think this is something. And so, yeah, whilst I was doing events, I started looking into how to build an app, how to build a tech platform, really, really struggling. Came across a company that kind of does it for you, or like helps you white label, whatever it was. So a year later, I was able to kind of launch like my own white label version of an app. And I remember, I can't remember the stats now, but in the first like month, we got like 3,000 or 4,000 downloads, you know, tens of thousands of messages and connections. It was a lot at the time. And then it was kind of like, okay, what do I do next, or how do I go from here? And that's how I kind of entered the whole entrepreneurial scene. And what I mean by that is the networking element, or meeting people in the entrepreneurial space. I joined New Entrepreneurs Foundation at the time, and through them, you know, I connected to a lot of other entrepreneurs, investors, learned a bit more about, you know, the whole fundraising and growth journey. And then at the end of that, that's when I won their pitch competition, Founders of the Future at Founders Forum pitch competition. And I also won a Sky Scholarship as a future woman in technology. And I think it was during that phase of real deep learning, because that's when I went full time. Yeah. That's when I left my job. And it was like 6 months of deep learning and understanding. And I think the main thing was like, oh, you need to, build your own tech. You need to, so it was all that kind of, just all that kind of learning. And then just, again, just grew from there.
So much to learn. There's
story.
So much to learn, isn't there? So much. Every hour, every minute of every day when you're a founder is learning.
Yeah.
Incredible. So you were still working full time then when you were starting things off. Was that how you were funding the early part of the journey then, through your salary?
So funny enough, BYP always was revenue generating from the get-go. So that first event, again, I can't remember how much we made, but I think it was like £3,000 or £4,000 or something like that. And I think I spent about 500. So it was like there was already margin straight away. And I kept reinvesting that same money for the next events. That same money was able to get me the white label app. So from the get-go, I was able to kind of just grow via revenue, essentially.
Yeah, that's great. Not many founders manage to do that, but that's quite empowering, isn't it? Because it means you're less desperate for cash. You've got a bit more control over the process.
But the thing is, I didn't know there was any other way. I think that's something I always want to highlight. Like, I didn't know you can raise money. I didn't know any of those things. And so funny enough, when I kind of got into this world of entrepreneurship, or like into the, I guess, I don't want to say circles, they were always like, oh, you're quite advanced, or like, oh, I didn't know, just did it.
Well, I think that's a good thing though, because I think too many founders do know, and then they try and raise investment way too early before they've even kind of proved that there is product market fit, and so you clearly were doing that very early on. It was flowing, wasn't it?
Yeah.
In terms of uptake and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think that's a great way to start out, actually. So then you got to the point where you thought, right, I'm going to raise investment. Tell us about your thinking on that thing, because you decided to go for crowdfunding. Did you think about raising in other ways as well?
So I raised before that crowdfund. So the first raise was 2018 into 2019, like the money came into account like January 2019. But obviously fundraising is like 6 months before. So I raised 150K pre-seed, and that was from 4 angel investors. And I met them through the pitch competitions that I won. So all my investors 3 of them came from New Entrepreneurs Foundation, and 1 came from Sky Women Technology. And so that was the initial kind of like, okay, fundraise. And that was all about like, okay, me trying to build my own platform and, start building the business. And so with that money, sorry, go on.
I was going to say, I mean, just before we go on, that's really interesting, because we're always having debates here at Enter the Arena and with our founders about pitch competitions. A lot of people hate them. A lot of people feel like it's a waste of time, but for you, it wasn't.
Yeah, it wasn't. And I don't think it is a waste of time. You learn, like, I haven't done one since, to be quite honest, or haven't really done a real one since. Like, that was my entry, that was like, I have this idea, or this is what I've been building. Hi, let me tell you about it. And that was a kind of, yeah, that's correct. You're building something good. Here's some cash. You've won. Yeah. I know that makes sense. It was like that idea validation of like, yeah, it's a real business and you should go forward with this. And I won about £40,000 from those 3 competitions, which is a lot for someone who didn't. I remember at the time that was like more than my like base salary where I was working. I was like, hold on, what? I'm giving money to do my own company. That's almost how it felt. So obviously I went full time because I'm like, well, what the hell? Like, I need to focus on this business. So yeah, and then that's when the networking started. That's when people knew a bit who I was. That's how things kind of progressed. So I kind of started off a very strong base off the back of those pitch competitions.
So worth doing. And obviously, the fact that you won them all is a huge,
it helps. And I think they were in the same week as well. So that was like a triple whammy of like heightened visibility for sure.
Yeah. So definitely worth people thinking about. But I think it's about finding the right ones. And those are 3 obviously really good pitch competitions that have good audience in them and have led to some funding as well. So
yeah, but it's hard though. But what I would say is you don't know what is good. You just kind of have to go for it. Because I didn't know what was good. I just kind of, someone sent me a link to the Founders Forum, one. I was like, oh, okay, the application form isn't too long. I'll fill it out. One thing about me is if the application form is long, I will not fill it out. So I just won't. But it was short. And I'm like, okay, why not? And New Entrepreneurs Foundation, I was already part of them anyway. And then Sky Women, that was like it wasn't quite a pitch competition, but it was an entry, and it was a competition in the end for 3 people to get it. But it was a program. So yeah, I think you should just go for whichever ones you see, and just, it's good to practice as well.
Yeah, that's right. Good practice. Get your kind of narrative straight, and just, practice your communication skills, all of that. Great. So that's your first 150K. So that got you a little bit further down the road, meant you could leave your job, focus on it full time.
Yeah.
And then the crowdfund.
Yeah, so with the 150K of 2019, the main things that was done that year was we did our podcast and we did our leadership conference. And that was a leadership conference that had about 800 attendees. It was in like a central London location. I think when we got about 15 corporate sponsors. And it was a big event. And I feel like it really helped put BYP more on the map, especially with corporates. And it was executed really, really well. People described it as a black heaven. And one of my investors showed up and he was just like, I can't explain it, but it felt like it was their business. Like the audience that came was like, this is my company. This is ours. And that always rang in my mind, like there is real ownership of the community of BYP Network. It is a community-based company. And the fact that they felt that was really, really strong. And yeah, most of the 150 was used to build an app. So a lot of learnings there. Basically, the app was just bugged out. So it was like the money, as far as I'm concerned, got spent. But luckily, we were revenue generating. And by that time, I think we brought in like 300,000 or so. So it was kind of like, but again, I can't remember, like we got to a month last year, I think February or March, where we just ran out of money. And I didn't see it coming as well. So kind of business, got to make sure your checks and balances. Yeah, but again, I've got the most incredible angel investors, I must state. They just so supportive. Like the main angel investor, he loaned us £100,000. It's like, we'll put it towards the next raise. So that really, really helped. And we were fine. And so it got to, I think, August when we decided to do our crowdfund. Main reasons were, one, I always wanted to do a crowdfund. I wanted the community to invest in BYP because I deeply believe in this company and believe it will grow and scale. And I want the community to benefit from that when we do. Two, I also had angel investors invest in that crowdfund as well. So it wasn't all just like £10 here and whatnot. It was like angel money and like individual money and whatnot. Don't know why I'm saying whatnot, but
whatnot. It's great. Whatnot.
I did have VC meetings as well in that time, and obviously around, like, we know the narrative in terms of Black female founders or female founders raising money and from VCs. And so I can't remember how many I spoke to now, but I was back to back during the crowdfund. So as I was raising for the crowdfund, I was also having meetings with VCs. The furthest I went, I think I went to the third round, maybe with one of the VCs, if there is a third round normally. And I think the question was just on scaling or something like that. But either way, like we know, sorry, I don't know what's pinging. We know the stats and we know it's harder to raise. And I think I saw that because, again, I don't know whether it's some of the questions or just whatever it was like, you wouldn't ask a white man this, or, where I am as a company is so much further ahead than most people that you give X amount of money to. So I remember just saying that the truth is they just don't want to invest in my company, full stop. But I wasn't upset by it. I was just like, well, this is what it is. And maybe I just don't want their money as well. It was that kind of like, yeah, I'm not going to beg. Like, I know fundraising is like begging, but I'm not going to beg for.
Well, it shouldn't be about begging though. It should be a win-win. It should be a joint thing.
Yeah, but it comes across like it's begging because of just how much it's like, nah. Or I had a few that just strung me along, wasted my time. All those kind of normal stories that you've been hearing. So for me, the raising the 900K was fine. I think we were aiming for maybe like £2 million, like that's where we want to get. And that's the idea. We didn't actually need that much money, to be honest. And we really didn't need that much. So we landed on the crowdfund with, 900K, which $1.1 million. And that was more than enough, absolutely more than enough. And so it was just, it was crowdfund and high net worth within that.
So you went out, your target when you went out for crowdfunding was set at like $500,000.
Yeah.
So how much did you raise before you went live?
So I think it was like 200 at the time. So it was like half. So roughly 200. And then during that month so what happened is that, so we hit 500K in 5 days. With also the 200K, invested into the crowdfund. So you have to make sure you've got some people who already say, they'll put money into it. So we had that. And then the community came in, we hit the 500K. I think at the time that was about 750 investors. So we were so happy about that. The thing with crowdfund, they tell you to like set your target lower so you could overfund, so that you definitely hit it and then you overfund. But that doesn't really, I'm not really pro that, and I don't think that works very well. Because what happened was everyone was like, well, you hit your target. I don't understand why you're still raising. Like, that was the sentiment, and it makes sense. It's true. Like, you've got your target.
I mean, the psychology of the crowd is really interesting. I mean, there is that thing where there are some people who won't come in until they see that you've already funded, because then they kind of get that massive FOMO and they go, oh my God, I'm going to miss out. You know, this is going places. Yeah. But I guess you're right. I mean, I've seen companies that overfund 200%, 300%, and you kind of think, yeah, they didn't need my money. They're all right.
Yeah. Well,
I think there's a balance, isn't it? Getting it.
Also, who knows? Crowdfunding was very new concept. You know, it's for my community anyway, like in terms of investment, and we know that from stats, there's not enough Black investors or female investors. So this was all a lot of education about crowdfunding and what to expect and why to do it, and, you know, really that element. So technically, if you're coming from a space of not understanding it, and then you see someone's hit their target and then they're still like, hey, put money in, it's like, but you've hit your target. I don't get it, you know? So, or even those who've put money in. So so after that 5 days of hitting the 500K, it was such a crawl to get the remaining like 400K. So yeah, that's what took up energy. It was that 35 days after. But I was like, if I just set it to 1 million at the time, I actually think that would have been better, because I think it would have been ongoing of pushing, and people understood, because we haven't hit the target.
Although if you'd done that and you had only got 200K secured in advance, you'd have launched at only 20% funded.
Yeah, so it might have been
that's hard to get people moving too. So
that's true.
It's a bit of an art and a science too.
Yeah. I don't know. It's true. Either way, that remaining days was very much a crawl of like just ongoing panels, talks, promotion. Like you can name it, calls, meetings. You know, getting more high net worth angel investors. So, I mean, look, I'm grateful we did it. I worked hard.
How the hell did you manage it throughout that process? Did you have at that point, did you have a team around you? How did you stay sane?
Yeah, honestly, last year was mainly myself, and I had a head of partnerships as well, kind of co-founder, but she was more focused on like the corporate side, I'd say. So really it was like mainly me just doing the fundraising, and we had this kind of company start us out with like the assets and the video and stuff, and so they had that part, but actual in terms of intensity, it was myself, like literally the whole time just going non-stop. And so you can imagine that was too much, but I was going off adrenaline. Like one thing that helped, and I think for other people, is I set a date. I was like, well, by the end of the crowdfund, whatever we land on is what we land on. Like, I'm not going further than that date. So that's why, 900K instead of £1 million. Like, I stopped when it stopped, because I was like, I've only got energy for that. So I'm, that's the end date. So anyone that I'm contacting needs to get back to me by that date. They need to let me know. So so that actually helps by setting up deadline.
When you control the timescales, and I think that's true whether you're doing an angel round or a crowdfund, a bit harder on a VC round, because it's really hard to control the timescales with them, but taking some ownership of it. Yeah. And when you set deadlines, then people have to meet them or they don't, that's otherwise, as you say, it can kind of drag on like it did with the VC, kind of leads you down the path, because they don't have the same time deadlines that you do, as you watch your money going down and down and down in your bank account, thinking, oh my God, I need to raise, so it's quite stressful, isn't it? Can we talk a little bit about valuation? So your valuation of the business was 8 million in sterling for the round, which is a tasty valuation, and I'm really proud of you for doing that. But it's high for a business quite early on. So how did you land on that amount, and did you get any pushback on that? Like, I'm really interested to know, because I think it's great that you went out so boldly.
Yeah, so there was a few reasons. One, I look over at the American market as well. Like, those are their standard valuations. Like, why must it be different here in the UK? Like, I know it's always like, oh, UK is conservative, UK. Well, no, like my business is a business that can tackle the global economy. And at some point we will obviously go over to America as well. We're revenue generating. So we did really, at that time, we were doing good in terms of revenue. And even now, we've done close to 2 million in revenue. So for me, it's like, I kind of knew what BYP, where we're headed. Like, I have no doubt about the growth potential. And I knew at the time I'm fundraising because of capacity, and we need to grow the team, and we need more of a senior team as well. So for me, yeah, I was just like, and actually, because I was raising the 2 million. So normally in a round, it's like 20%, 25%. So that's also part of it. So I'm like, well, if I'm giving away 20%, that would be the valuation. So I didn't get much pushback, not from even the angel investors. In fact, one of the angels was the reason I went higher. They were just like, why so low? And that's an angel investor who's putting in their money. So yeah, I didn't get much pushback, and any kind of pushback I got, it was from, I'd say, an inexperienced individual who wants to put money in, and they were trying to act experienced. That's literally, it was just asking questions, and you're like, no one else is asking this question, and you want to put in like £50, like, stop it.
The smaller ones are usually the most annoying. I don't mean to be annoying, but ask you more questions. But the people who really know what they're doing will look at your business and kind of see the opportunity. But I think actually having a bold valuation also exudes confidence. It's like, oh wow, or she's got a valuation of 8 million. It must be good.
Yeah. And I guess if you go off of multiples of 10 or multiples of 5, we're definitely within that, especially with our revenue. So we're right.
Yeah. If you can keep the trick now will be keeping the pace of growth up, so that you hold that and double that valuation or triple that valuation as you go forward. But
yeah, I guess where I am mentally with fundraising, I don't know yet if I will do another one anytime soon. I'm always kind of indifferent to it. Like, we're good financially as a company. It's not like we're going to die anytime soon. Hopefully we won't die. I'm kind of very pro growing by revenue at the moment, just because I feel like there's more control. We need to be bold and ambitious as a company to kind of keep scaling in that way with our corporate partners, with our members. And the whole fundraising period, it just takes up so much time and capacity. And also, in terms of valuation, again, do I want to give away 10, 20% for, I don't know, whatever the next valuation will be, and then keep doing that? Not really. So yeah, I'm not too fussed about that kind of, okay, what would be your next valuation? Because I'm like, well, maybe when I raise, it might be at bigger valuation later down the line where we're even stronger as a company. So yeah, I'm still like question mark about that, but I also don't really want to go through that experience again in terms of the VC side of things. And like, I don't really want to do that again, because for me, it's like, well, if I go to raise next time, it will be like them coming to me. That's more my mindset at the moment, because I'm just like, I didn't care about the no's or whatever. That's part and parcel, but it just feels like I can't be bothered. I know it sounds like I can't be bothered. Like, it's a long process. And funny, this past year after the fundraise, like I said, I've been very like out of it all, out of the loop, out of what's been going on. And sometimes when I go onto Twitter and then I see something, it just annoys me again. And I'm just like, I don't really want to enter this field that annoys me, that stresses me. Even with the fundraise last year, there's quite a few articles that I appeared in talking about fundraising as a Black founder, and the stats and all that stuff. I'm just like, I don't really want to have to go through that again. So
do you feel like you've had to be the poster child for Black female founders in the last year?
I feel like the reason I say no is because I haven't allowed it to be. And like I said, I've turned down a lot of things just because I just mentally can't. So I've allowed myself not to be. But I'm sure there's a kind of feeling of, where's Kike? Like, why is she not advocating anymore? Why is she not? And it's like, I'm actually tired. Like, I don't want to spend my years or days having to be like, there's not enough this, there's not enough that. Like, the reason I started BYP was to change the narrative and to work on problem solving. So I kind of just want to work on problem solving and do what I can. Because it's never going to stop. Like, I went on Twitter the other day, and this company Canvas has raised $50 million for something similar, like a D&I platform by 2 white men. And that, their reason of, how they relate is, one of them said, oh, I've been incarcerated before, I have Black nieces and nephews, and it's just like, how is that your relation to why you raised $50 million with ease? And I just feel like the stats are there for a reason. And the truth is, they don't really want to invest in female founders or Black female founders. There's no point. Again, it sounds really negative. I can do this, I can do that, I can do this, but the facts are the facts.
Yeah, sometimes I mean, you feel like you're banging ahead. You can be banging ahead against. I feel the same.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm doing it for female founders, not Black, but God, some of the conversations I have, I'm like, I'm never going to change this guy's opinion. Why am I wasting my breath? Actually, you've got to focus on the things that you can do that will make a difference. I think you cannot do it all. It's impossible. I mean, how do we get? What are your thoughts, Kike, about how we do address this issue of so little funding? I mean, I know I'm asking you the question that you don't want to bang on about, but not for us to solve necessarily, but what should the community as a whole be doing or looking at?
So even this past year, what we've done as a company, we've helped quite a lot of Black founders or Black businesses launch on crowdfunding. Like, we've done quite a few. We've even got another one coming up next month, and I've enjoyed doing that. I enjoyed helping them kind of raise money from the community. And I know it's not conducive maybe for the Series A's and a Series B, but if it gets them a start and it gets that buying and that initial customer, I think that's great. I do think there needs to be more Black, female, all that stuff. Like, there needs, underrepresented investors. That's what we actually need. We need to educate more people on investing and investing in startups. There's a lot of people, there's a lot of women with money, there's a lot of Black people with money. Like, we need to find them and get them educated on the benefits and why they should get involved, and all those things, and pulling money together. And then on the other side, I mean, we've been doing it, we've been saying it on educating them and telling them this, but biases are biases. And we've seen results. I think the stats tell you, female founders, you get a better return of investment, or they do. You hear all of it, right? But I think ultimately it's like they will choose who they want to invest in, full stop. The affinity bias is there, and we can try and change that, but you can't die trying to do that. I think the more women, the more Black people, all that stuff that we can get into investing and knowing about it, and just being part of the journey, I think would be good, because there's enough money in the community. And I know that sounds like a different approach. I know most people be like, no, we need to. Actually, again, last year me and 3 others, we wrote a whole kind of mandate of VCs, what they need to do for Black founders, which is set money aside, percent, make sure their partners, etc., is diverse, make sure that look, I can't even remember, it's somewhere, I can send it to you. So I did all of that last year. During the height of Black Lives Matter, a lot of VCs didn't even talk out about it, didn't say anything. That's like, if that's not the time to talk out, when will be? Well,
they don't know how to. They don't know how. They don't know what to say or what to do.
They just didn't. I mean, even just a statement of, wow, we see you, or just there was nothing. But even in America, they did a lot more, and they put aside money, and you can see there's a lot more funds now opening up. But it was actually quite quiet in the EU, from my memory. Like, there was just no one saying anything. And so we wrote this whole thing, that got published, and it hasn't been done. So for me, it's like, that's what they should do. It's there, but will they do it? Don't know. Am I going to be the one to fight every day for them to do it? No. So,
which is an interesting one though. Like, actually because a lot of people will say, well, people should be funded on their merits, and I don't. Investors will say, I don't want to be forced into having to put money into businesses where I don't necessarily believe in them just because they tick a certain box.
Yeah, but that's always an excuse. That's why nothing ever changes, because the thing is, if you don't have that percent, you won't even look at those businesses. That's the key. Like, it's to make you look at those businesses and see, okay, actually, or maybe you get more Black people in your firm who will understand the businesses more. I've had investors say, oh, but is it a big enough market? Would Black people really want this? And it's like, I remember someone asking me, what is Black? How does someone know if they're Black? So if you have things like that, you're not going to.
You're fighting a battle, aren't you? You're focusing on a lack of understanding. But I mean, I personally think that measurement is a huge step, because if we're not measuring across every stage of the pipeline, what the diversity of the people who are applying, going through the process, how do we even know where the problem sits? And most investors are not doing that either. I think that should absolutely be mandatory.
I keep going. It goes to care. Do they care? And again, not to attack investors, but do you care? So that's what I'm trying to say. Like, I think my mindset shifted a lot from last year, from being very vocal and just like, this needs to change. Here's a mandate. going into the Times, going to Sifted, I was in just all these different channels, like this, the investors need to do this. Where are the VCs? Why aren't they talking up? But they never did. And I'm just like, well, again, I can't die trying to, change all of this, where I'm making change myself through my company, and whatever we can do, great. And if we can help upskill and educate people, great. And I think everyone just needs to do their part. If everyone does their part, then we'll shift forward. And there are people doing their part. There are people advocating, being activists in this field, and and they matter. Everyone matters in this journey. But I think people just need to choose their strengths and go forward with that.
Yeah, wise words. You can't do it all. So what's going to be next for you guys? I mean, where does BYP go next?
Yeah, it's so exciting. So this past year, we've been scaling. Like, scaling journey is so hard. Everyone says it all the time, people, talent, finding the right talent. Like, honestly, it has been a whirlwind of a year of hiring, bringing in the wrong people, right people, wrong people. And yeah, it's just been a case where we've grown. So, in terms of like revenue, like I mentioned, our corporate clients, the impact we've done 3 summits. We've got our leadership conference coming up next month. Our job board is alive and kicking. We have about 300 jobs posted every single month. We have about 70 corporate clients, another 500, 600 plus that use our job board consistently. And in terms of the community, like, honestly, we've been able to support them, like I said, with their fundraising, promoting different opportunities. So like 01 Founders, Iroko TV. Honestly, we've just done a lot again. And now I feel like it's time to talk about all the things that we've done. But going forward, we've been developing on our mentorship platform side of things. Something we've really realized is there is this kind of education piece that really needs to be doubled down, both on the corporate side and on the community side. So we're helping employers have their employees mentor our members. So we've got quite a few companies already signed up to that. And that's going to be one of our biggest focus next year, scaling that part, as well as our course. So we have a course that's coming out, which is all about the Black experience. Again, to educate employers on the differences you might see, what to expect, how to kind of engage, attract, retain Black talent. And again, at the same time, we still have our conferences and things that we'll be doing. So for us, BYP is here to change the narrative and not exist, essentially. So we know it's a big task, it's a forever task. And I think as a company, it's that representation. I want to show people that, a Black business focusing on Black people can grow, can scale, it can do great things. So yeah, I think it's just continued growth, essentially. But one thing that's exciting is I feel like next year I'll be a lot less in the company, a lot more out of the company, which I'm excited about. Yeah,
that is great, isn't it? When you get to that point where you have a team around you and you can focus on your strengths rather than doing everything.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is.
To start, but it's exhausting.
Very exhausting. So, but sometimes I'm just like, I'm so grateful to be on this journey, even though it's hard. And every day I'm like, this is hard. There's not a day I don't say that. I'm like, but hey, thank God I can do it. I can do these hard things, or that I've been given the opportunity to tackle such huge problems. And sometimes it's like, wow, imagine how much I've learned or how much growth I'm doing without even realizing it. So even though it is very challenging, it's amazing to just be part of this journey at such a young age as well.
Yeah, well, you're incredibly inspirational. I wish you all the very best with scaling the business. And I'm very confident that it's going to be successful. Thank you so much for your time today, Kike.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. We finally did it.
Thanks for following Fundraising Stories with Female Founders. This content is all provided to you for free. So if you've enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe so you never miss another one. Enter the Arena has helped hundreds of female founders fly through pre-raise and investment and onto the exponential growth of their business. Our first-hand experience, expert guidance, and proven programs help female founders unleash the Wonder Woman inside. To see if we can help you do the same, head over to www.enterthearena.co.uk. I'm Julia Elliott Brown, and I look forward to talking with you soon.